When God first whispered to me the words Transfiguration Prayer, I didn't know what was about to unfold in my life. It began simply as a phrase in prayer, but very quickly it became a journey up a mountain that I didn't expect to climb, but a mountain where I began to see where heaven meets here, where I began to learn that prayer is where transfiguration meets my transformation. Along the way, as I've journeyed up the mountain of transfiguration prayer, and as you've gone along with me, we've learned from people whose lives show us what prayer can actually become. Moses teaches us to intercede. Elijah teaches us to believe. Peter teaches us to strengthen. James teaches us to follow, and John teaches us to abide. And well, now today we're going to come to Jesus, the Son of God himself, and he is going to teach us that prayer is about surrender. Welcome to the Family Disciple Me Ministry. I am so glad that you're here with me, and our goal continues to be to seek him, speak him. We want to meet with God personally, and there's nothing more personal than prayer. And as we meet with God, then we want to turn around and we want to make him known into the lives of the precious ones that he's entrusted to us. My name is Tasha Williams, and today, as we turn our hearts to our final example on the Mount of Transfiguration, we're going to learn that true prayer isn't just spoken, it's surrendered. I find it so astounding that even Jesus, the radiant, divine Son of God, even Jesus prayed. It's almost beyond comprehension to me that the one whose face shone like lightning up there on the mountain of transfiguration, well, very soon he would be kneeling in the dirt in the Garden of Gethsemane. How is it that that same Jesus who was glowing in glory on the mountain would soon be covered in sorrow, praying, "Father, if you are willing, take this cup from me, yet not my will, but yours be done." It's one thing to shine in glory, but it's another thing to surrender in suffering. But Jesus did both. He showed us that the same God who meets us in the radiant glory moments also meets us in the shadows of surrender. On the mountain, Jesus' face was transformed, but there in the garden, his will was tested. And in both places, heaven met here. When the disciples said, "Lord, teach us to pray," way back in Luke chapter 11, verse 1, also in Matthew 6, Jesus taught them the Lord's Prayer. But then on the mountain of transfiguration, he showed them the Lord's Prayer. And then in the Garden of Gethsemane, he lived out that prayer. He showed them that prayer isn't just about escaping the pain. It's about accepting the Father's plan. As Jesus said in John chapter 6, verse 38, "For I have come down from heaven, not to do my will, but to do the will of him who sent me." That, my friend, is surrender. That's transformation. See, prayer changes us before it changes anything else. Maybe right now you're in a season where surrender feels costly, maybe even impossible. Maybe you've prayed for God to move a mountain, but instead you are facing one. Or maybe you have some suffering in your life and you've asked him to take away that cup, but he hasn't. If that's where you are, I encourage you with this. Jesus understands. He's been there. He knows what it's like to face what you don't want to have to face, to walk through what you don't want to have to walk through. But Jesus also exemplifies and knows the peace and the power that come when you pray, not my will, but yours be done. Oh, friend, that is where heaven meets here. And the thing is, that same light that shone on that mountain of transfiguration, well, it also shines in the gardens of Gethsemane of our lives. Jesus didn't just teach prayer, he became prayer, that living bridge between heaven and here. He surrendered to the Father's plan for us. And I love what Scripture says in Hebrews chapter 12, verse 2, where it says, "For the joy set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God." It is almost inexplicable to know that that joy set before him was us. We were the reason he prayed, surrendered. His eyes were on the prize. They were fixed on the Father, and they were fixed on us. Jesus' surrendered heart opened the way for our salvation. The glory of the mountain of transfiguration, it prepared Jesus for the agony of the garden. And that surrender in the garden is what opened up the way for victory for us. Philippians chapter 2, verse 8 says, "He humbled himself by becoming obedient to death, even death on a cross." That is what surrender looks like. And so, friend, as you consider how Jesus teaches us that prayer is about surrender, what is God saying to you right now? What is he speaking into your life about how he wants you to pray today? I know he's been speaking to my heart about the areas where he wants me to surrender my plan for his plan. It's not easy. It's not something that we naturally do. It's hard to have our plans pried from our hands. And yet, when we lay those down at the altar and we say, "Not my will, but yours be done," that's where God begins to do the greatest things in us and through us. So my challenge to you today is to seek him about this. Talk to God about what he wants to say to you about surrender. And then once you hear him speak into your life, turn around and speak him into someone else. Maybe your family's watching you as you're going through a really hard season. Maybe there's a friend who is watching how you live out your faith. Speak him. Talk about what God is saying to you about surrender. Maybe your spouse needs to hear that, or your small group needs to hear that, or your roommate, or somebody else in your life. Seek him should always lead to speak him. Because as we seek him and he moves in our lives, well, when we meet with God and we make him known, he'll begin to move in their lives as well. With that, we just have one more conversation left in this collection, Transfiguration Prayer, where heaven meets here. Our goal, our hope, our deepest and greatest prayer through all of this is that our prayer lives will be transfigured and transformed so that we can commune with Jesus like never before. Oh, friend, go with God. Listen to him, seek him, speak him today, and then I'll see you back here for the last episode.